วันนี้ก็พามา Public Tour ของ British Columbia Legislative Assembly หรือสภาแห่งรัฐBritish Columbia นะครับตอนนี้ก็รอทัวร์ตอน 4 โมงก็เข้ามาได้ขออนุญาตในการถ่ายทำวิดีโอแล้วนะครับแล้วก็รอเขาทัวร์ประมาณ 45 นาทีจะถ่ายเป็นคลิปสั้นๆมาให้ดูถ้าไงก็ฝากกดไลค์กดแชร์รายการผมด้วยเอกพากินและเที่ยวนะครับคนอื่นก็มาผมไปช้อปปิ้งครับ โอเคสวัสดีครับนี่เราก็เข้ามาแล้วนะครับเนี่ยผ่านการสกรีนมาแล้วก็เป็นเมนเอนทรานซ์สำหรับ Public นะครับเป็นภาพต่างๆนี่ก็น่าสนใจนะครับเพราะว่าลูกสาวคนโตเข้ามาเรียนที่นี่ก็เลยอยากหาความรู้เพิ่มเติมนะครับเราก็จะเดินไปทางนี้นะครับเป็น Lower Rotunda นะครับนี่มีภาพมีรูปต่างๆนี่เราเข้ามาแล้วนะครับไกด์ทัวร์ก็สตาร์ทตรงนี้ตอน 4 โมงนะครับนี่มี The Talking Stick นี่ก็เป็น The Coat of Arms of British Columbia นะครับThe current Mace of Legislative Assembly of British Columbia นี่เป็น Lower Rotunda นะครับก็เป็นครั้งแรกที่ผมเพิ่งเข้ามาเหมือนกันนี่ The Black Rod นะครับอันนี้เขาทำขึ้นมาในปี 2012 เพื่อ commemorate Diamond Jubilee ของ Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II Queen of Canada แล้วก็มี Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom นะครับนี่อันนี้ที่ผมก็อยากจะกำลังหาข้อมูลศึกษาเพิ่มเติมนะครับนี่เขาทำดีนะฮะให้คนเนี่ยได้เข้ามามีส่วนร่วมนะครับแต่ก็ยังคง tradition แบบBritish นะครับแน่นอนที่นี่จะ British มากที่สุดเพราะว่าเป็น British Columbia นั่นเองนะครับแล้วก็ Queen ที่เขาตั้งชื่อตามก็คือ Queen Victoria นะครับจะมีรูปต่างๆนี่นะครับโอเคอันนี้เป็นป้ายที่แสดงว่า The Path to Universal Suffrage นะครับก็ในApril 1917เนี่ย British Columbia เป็นรัฐที่ 4 ของแคนาดาที่ให้สิทธิผู้หญิงในการลงคะแนนเลือกนะครับเลือกตั้งของรัฐแล้วก็การลงสมัครรับเลือกตั้งของรัฐมีข้อมูลต่างๆนะฮะอันนี้ก็เป็นรูปผู้หญิงต่างๆนี่ครับนี่เป็น Mary Ellen Smith second row the first woman elect to the Legislative Assembly นะครับนี่ดีนะครับดีครับ The Canadian Bill of Rights an Act for the Recognition and Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms Statute of Canada 1960 8-9 Elizabeth II Chapter 44 Assent to 10 August 1960 นะครับนี่ก็เป็นกฎบัตรว่าด้วยสิทธิ์ของแคนาดา
Going up volume-wise. You are more than welcome to take photos in here. If you'd like to be splashed, that is fine. Because we would like to know today, but I will try my best to answer any questions you might have today. How about that? Good. All right. Let's get that right. Okay. So before I jump let's work here, I am curious about who I have. Okay. Moving a little east, but you walk a little bit there. You Rothschild area. First people who live here in this part of the province, which is now known as the province of British Columbia, with Same spelling, just different pronunciations, meaning different positions, different countries. So 1700s, that we started to see more records of European arriving. Now, with their arrivals, a collection of very different looking symbols and usages were also brought to this end of the world. Now, one example of that is actually this big symbol right here, which is like behind you there, gentlemen. Right here, this is the coat of arms. So that over there is the provincial coat of arms here for the province of BC. If you take a look at the coat of arms, in the middle there you'll find a provincial shield. And that is supported by two animals, one on either side. On your left, you'll find 49. Now about 10 years after that, people started to explore more of the Fraser Valley. And that was where they found something really valuable over there. It was yellow and it was shiny. It was gold, exactly, thank you. That was one of the many gold at that time. There were only 4 provinces, being Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. BC, or this province, wasn't part of Canada yet until 1871. We are province number 6 out of the 10 that we have right now. Now going back to the middle of the coat of arms, again, that is our provincial shield. If you divide that into 2 different parts, the upper and lower halves. The upper half has a flag that looks very much like the Union flag, which is a reference to our colonial past over here. Because the 2 colonies we were talking about earlier, those were British colonies. Now below that, we are looking at 100% local references. There's a sun, and behind the sun there are like waves in 2 different colors over there. Now the sun and the sun is actually a setting sun for the reason that we are the most western province, being here the west coast of the entire country. That's about our geographical location. The province of BC also neighbors the Pacific Ocean to the west side and the beautiful Rocky Mountains to our east side. So they chose 2 different colors. The blue we have over here is splendor without diminishment. Or, very simply put, beautiful British Columbia. Now some of you might see the second translation already before joining us for the tour, because that second translation is on our license plate here. Now the white flowers we have surrounding our provincial motto are Pacific Dogwood, our provincial flower here in BC. Any questions?
What was the flower again?
Pacific Dogwood.
Oh,
I know. A straightforward as it sounds. So before we, many things were created to put in place to make those changes. Now, one of them was the residential school system, which although used the name school, but it was more of a coercive assimilation program specifically for our First Peoples children. Now, the system was in place for 150 plus years, from 1830s to 1996. And a lot of kids who went to the residential school system actually never made it back home. A couple years ago, an individual by the name of Phyllis Westband shared her story of going to the school when she was about yay high. Like, I think she was 6 years old at that time. She didn't come from a wealthy family, but because that was her first day of school, so her grandmother actually managed to get her a really nice, bright orange shirt. But when she arrived at the school, everything she brought along from home with her was removed off her. That was the last time she saw everything, including that shirt. So the shirt had this family member as the day that her life, and also so many first kids' life will forever change from that moment onward. So ever since then, the orange shirt has become the symbol that has been kind of more popularly shared and discussed in terms of that part of history here. Now about 2 Fridays ago, so the last Friday of September, about 2 Fridays ago, that was our second National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which is a day that we mark in our calendar to hopefully encourage and ask more Canadians to learn about that part of the past so we can, again, be on the same page, so we can go forward together as a collective. Now we have a table set up over here for those of you who want to leave a message to either the survivors of the residential school system or a message of condolences to the families whose kid never actually made it back. Any questions? All right, so welcome to the upper rotunda. Now this room here is also known as our memorial rotunda for all the flags you can find here on the wall surrounding us. Now these flags are here to remember all fallen British Columbians in the past. And that is why the day before Remembrance Day, typically you'll find us organizing an event over here. Some of this displays that on an annual basis. And on the day off, usually there's a bigger event planned outside on the grounds there with a soldier statue and a cenotaph as the focal point of the event. Now I talked about colonies downstairs. The walls actually went over 900,000. Having said that, Mr. Ratzenberg took the building as a very good opportunity to showcase our natural resources in the province. So for the outside, for the exterior, they sourced two different types of local stones. One of them is granite, that's used for the ground foundation, and also the front steps outside. For the rest of the walls that we have going from pretty much the first floor all the way up to the top, they have used anthracite stone from local islands here as well. Now before you enter the building, you probably notice that we have a lot of domes, ring domes at the very top. We are standing right below the largest one that we have right now. Now one last quick note is about that big doorway over there facing out in the front. That there is our ceremonial entrance. The ceremonial entrance to the Parliament buildings here is actually only for the F6 to make official entrance into the buildings. So this is really better than any country in the world. Now, in the national flag adapted, so our Navy also revamped their flag. So that means they don't fly this one anymore. But prior to 65, that would be the flag that our Navy would also fly. Now this one goes a little further back in the 1920s. That was when this flag was designed, put together, and brought into the building. This was put together to actually remember the soldiers that were. You can go up to the gate, no worries. Yeah, sure, first. So welcome to the heart, the focus, the entire point of having the Parliament buildings built. This is the chamber for the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia. Now for this stop here, I'll be standing on the side. You can go up to the gate to look into the room. Don't worry about me, I see this room every day. You can go up there. Otherwise, like empty space. So Canada is a constitution, a monarchy, and parliamentary democracy. Our parliamentary system is based on the Westminster House of Parliament. Oops, I almost took over that. Sorry about that. Which of course originated in the UK. So if you watch their meetings and compare theirs to ours over here, you will some things that look familiar or similar for that reason. So when you look into the room over here, which measures 12 by 18 square meters, you'll find that we have a middle hallway and we have desks on either side. Now from your perspective, the left-hand side, so that side over there, is the governing side of the House, which means the party over there has won the most number of seats in our last election. Opposite is the opposition, pretty straightforward. So on the right-hand side, from your perspective, is where you'll find the second largest party, or the official opposition, plus any other parties that we might have here on the floor take their seats. At this time in BC, we have 3 political parties that have official party status on the floor. Our governing party is New Democratic Party, or NDP. So their members, most of them are seated on your left-hand side. Our official opposition is BC Liberals, so their members are seated on the right. We do have about 2 members, I believe, that are from BC Green, so they're on the right-hand side here. We have 1 more member that is independent at this time. That looks really professional. Now, our members here are known as MLAs, or Members of the Legislative Assembly. That's a mouthful, so we call them MLAs, or members all the time. We have 87 of them. They meet here in the springtime from February until May, and also in the fall from October until November. So that means we are actually in our fall session right now. Now, we just had our Thanksgiving on Monday, so that means that this week is shorter kind of working week, so that's why we don't see any meetings happening over here. But come next Monday, on the 17th, at 10 o'clock in the morning, they will resume their fall sessions. When that happens, these 2 wooden doors will be closed. This room right here will only be open for the members to have access to the floor. But they will open up the upper level for anybody who wants to take a seat to be in the same space when the meetings are happening here on the carpeted floor. Now, if you don't have the time to come over to downtown Victoria, or you just don't have time to be here at this part of the country altogether, but are still curious about what they'll be talking about that particular day, we do have a team here that specializes in broadcasting and also transcribing everything that's talked about over here. That team is known as Hensor Broadcasting Services. To provide that service, they have installed many cameras. So when you look into the chamber, look at the walls on either side, you'll find between the TVs some smaller rectangular compartments that were made into the walls. And those are to house the cameras. Can you see that? I'm going to step aside. Again, I don't need to see the room. I know what I'm talking about over there. So those big TVs, just a quick note about those TVs over there. Before the pandemic, they will only be brought onto the floor for major presentations, like say when they're talking about the budget for the year, for example. But of course, ever since the start of the pandemic, they had to figure out a way to have hybrid seatings over here. So the TVs have been there for about 2+ years now. Now, when you look into the chamber from where we are, the first thing you will see between the two wooden doors is a shining stick. And that is very simply known as the bar of the house, just like that. Now, being placed at the beginning of the middle hallway, that is to remind you that, hey, from here onward at the back over there is the official meeting place for all the officially elected representatives of the province. So that means if you're one of the 87 members that we have in the province of BC, feel free to go past that before you proceed onto your desk or seats. If you're not one of the 87s that we have over here, you can go one floor up to take a seat upstairs in the public galleries. Now, if you direct your attention to the very far back in the middle hallway, before you see that big chair on the platform, there's a table there at the very far end. That table is for the parliamentary clerks. So they are the staff members that are responsible for all the documents necessary for the lawmaking processes to proceed. They're the people that you might have seen on TV that counts the number of yes and no's on the floor when they rub the house. The Speaker of the House is selected amongst all the members that we have over here, 3,000 people back home. Now, if you look at the Speaker's chair and kind of direct your attention a little bit to the left, before you can see the national flag, you should be able to see a skinny-looking wooden stick. Can we see that? So that is our talking stick. So our talking stick, or that talking stick there, was made in 2010. At that time, that was to celebrate the naming of the Sage Sea, which is a nearby body of water here at the south of the island. Good call. That's okay, well, that happens. I mean, when the area is also open for self-guided visitors, this happens a lot. Oh, you made it! Any questions as we're waiting for more people to join us down here in the next minute or two? The guided tour. So for this part over here, we'll be talking about the windows, one to my left, one to my right. The women's photos, which is in front of me over here, and we will have somewhere on the far wall to the right over there from my perspective. Now last but not least, I will also talk about the exhibit that's happening behind me here as well. Now I'm going to start with the windows. Now the window to my left-hand side here is our Golden Jubilee window, which was made back in 2002 for the late Queen's year 50 on the throne. The Golden Jubilee window was locally designed and made here in the province of BC, and that is why you can spot a lot of provincial symbols on the window there. So in the middle, we have our provincial coat of arms. At the top left, we have our provincial bird, the Scalus jay. If you stay on the left-hand side and go all the way down to the last circle, then you'll see two fish. They are our provincial fish over here, the Pacific salmon. Now, all the triangular shapes you see on the windows represent our provincial tree, the western red cedar. And if you can direct your attention to the bottom part of the borders over there, we can see some shapes that look like ocean waves, which represent the Pacific Ocean. Below the waves over there, we have some shapes that look like snow-capped mountains. They represent the Rocky Mountains once again. And at the bottom tip of those mountain-looking shapes, there's a smaller diamond-shaped, darker piece over there at that corner. Now, those little pieces were made of BC jade, which is our provincial stone. So this here is the window for year 50 for Golden Jubilee celebration. If you add 10 more years, that will bring us up to a year 60, a Diamond Jubilee. The window to my far right is our Diamond Jubilee window, which was made back in 1897 for Queen Victoria's year 60. That was during her reign. And because the window was made back in 1897, so the elements they used for the window were the elements and symbols that were around at that time. So that big blue one you see at the top of the window, that was our blue one. That was an 1897 edition. So if you compare that to the one that we have been seeing since the very first drop of Golden Jubilee window, again, they borrow their symbols from the UK a lot more. So in the older design there, we have roses, thistles, giraffe, and daffodils over there. But after we pick our own Pacific dogwood as a provincial flower, we swap it out. That's what we see over there. Now you probably also noticed that they, in the middle of the corals, they both feature a shield, even though the shape or the profile of the shield is a bit different, which kind of it's more about the preference of the time. They actually sport the same two elements, the flag and the sun. The only difference between the two is the layout, which is completely opposite from each other. Now, when I talked about the sun earlier, I mentioned that it's about our geographical location in the province, which means it is a setting sun for being at the west end of the land over here. But the Diamond Jubilee window, if we go back to the time, the 19th century, when it was made, at that time, there was expression that the sun never sets in the British Empire. So if you combine all the clues all together, that means in the 19th century, the team put together a design that featured setting the sun above the Union flag. So for very obvious reason, it was now more likely received. So in later revisions, you can see that they have corrected. We have also got a little crown and all the process that we are now using the national flag in religious and now what would we call the Diamond Jubilee window? Original location, they tuck all the pieces away in the basement. Now, that's where all the pieces actually stayed for the next 62 years. So this kind of brings us back to the 1970s, where we had a huge restoration project happening over here. So luckily, when the restoration team discovered all the pieces, or rediscovered all the pieces in the basement, everything was in really good condition at that time. So that's why the team was able to collect everything and put it up here. Now, again, the window was not designed for the shape of frames we have in this room right here, so that's why we've been changing. For the first half of that, different groups of people actually had that right, the right to vote taken away from them at a different point in time, and it wasn't until the second half of the century that they gradually had that right legally returned to them. So universal suffrage for everybody, regardless of place of origin or faith, was truly in place in 1952. So having said that, even though we have a later start, both back in 1917 and 1952, at this time, we have about 42% of the seats held by female members. So pretty good. I would say. Okay, so one quick last note about the exhibit that's happening behind me, which our therapists came in and asked everybody to reflect how they feel about reconciliation through many, many pieces of work. So that's why you see different multimedia pieces being displayed over there, which is how they kind of share how they feel about reconciliation. And just like the table that we have next to the orange shirt, we also have a table for people who like to share how they feel about that as well. Any questions?
จบแล้วนะครับสำหรับ Public Tour ของ National Legislative Assembly นะครับเดี๋ยวเขาจะปิดตึกละอันนี้ก็เป็นสัญลักษณ์นะครับอันนี้อยู่ในตึกก็ใส่แมสหน่อยขอขอบคุณที่ติดตามรับชมนะครับแล้วก็พบกันใหม่สวัสดีครับครับก็จบไปแล้วนะครับสำหรับ Public Tour National Legislative Assembly หรือสภาแห่งรัฐของ British Columbia นะครับก็ได้เรียนรู้ประวัติศาสตร์เยอะพอสมควรนับตั้งแต่การก่อตั้งรัฐแคนาดาแล้วก็การเข้ารวมการให้สิทธิ์นะครับแล้วก็รับรองประกาศสิทธิ์ของผู้หญิงในทางการเมืองต่างๆนะครับก็มีความreconcile มีความเจ็บปวดอันขมขื่นที่ช่วงการก่อตั้งนั้นก็ได้ทำกับคนพื้นเมืองไว้เยอะพอสมควรนะแล้วก็ทางรัฐแล้วก็ทางรัฐบาลกลางเขาก็พยายามที่จะreconcile นี่ใช้คำว่าอะไรเยียวยาหรือว่าสมานฉันท์นะคนไทยชอบใช้คำว่าสมานฉันท์อันนี้ก็ให้ดูวิววันนี้อากาศดีมากเลยนะครับวันที่12ตุลามาเยี่ยมลูกแล้วก็ได้ความรู้ด้วยนะครับนี่วิกตอเรียข้างหลังนะครับสวยมากนี่อากาศดีมากนะครับเป็นฟอร์ที่อากาศคล้ายซัมเมอร์เลยทัวร์ก็ประมาณ45นาทีครับนี่เขาก็ปิดเรียบร้อยแล้ว แล้วก็ลอนนี้เขาก็สามารถที่จะนั่งได้ทุกอย่างให้ access กับ public นะครับสามารถเข้าได้แค่เอาน้ำเอาอาหารเข้าไปไม่ได้เท่านั้นเองนะครับปิดแล้วนี่เข้าทางนี้นะครับ main entrance ตรงนี้นะครับโอเคครับผมก็ฝากกดไลค์กดแชร์นะอันนี้รายการเอกพากินและเที่ยวคราวที่แล้วมาไม่มีเวลาพอนะครับได้ดูข้างนอกแต่คราวนี้ได้ดูข้างในก็สนุกครับได้ความรู้ด้วยโอเคครับผมสวัสดีครับ